Since its first unveiling, the Callisto Protocol has invited many comparisons to the 2008 survival horror classic Dead Space. Everything from its camera perspective to its combat and even its atmosphere and setting are there. All we're really missing is the silent protagonist Isaac Clarke. You can even stomp away in the Callisto Protocol. Now, emulating that tense undertaking from 14 years ago is understandable, especially since Striking Distance Studio, the new studio behind this gory outing, is led by one of Dead Space's original creators. But trying to recapture that old sci-fi flame is a double-edged sword. Creating a tribute to what is arguably a masterpiece may seem like an instant win, and Callisto has a truly solid foundation to work with because of it. But the further you delve into its dark, dank corridors, the more you'll realise that it has very little to really call its own. While it does take place on a moon surface rather than a spacecraft, the Black Iron Prison still attempts to capture the look and feel of the USG Ishimura. With its dark hallways and nightmarish inhabitants, a range of similarly designed weapons make up much of the main character Jacob Lee's inventory, and there's still room for a, let's say, alternative kinesis ability. The immersive HUD is just a button press away and your health ticks down on the outside of Jacob's suit all the same. It's like you're playing the first few hours of a sequel, where the gameplay feels familiar before the developer begins to introduce some new ideas. Whether this is actually a bad thing or not is difficult to judge, because it makes for a game that is consistently good. It's certainly unoriginal, but there's no denying that there's a decent level of quality built into the Callisto Protocol purely by virtue of its blueprint. But what is actually new then, I hear you ask? Well, the story for a start, which sees Jacob crash land on Jupiter's moon Callisto, where he is swiftly taken to prison. He doesn't spend more than 5 minutes in his cell, however, before mutated monsters outnumber the security bots on patrol, giving him a prime chance to escape. What follows is your stereotypical plot, where you're trying to escape whilst also uncovering all the nasty going-ons of the Black Iron Prison. It's a perfectly serviceable narrative mixed in with a sizable dose of unspectacular. This applies to the characters too, who for the most part are forgettable blank canvases with very little in the way of defining features. The main man himself, Jacob, consistently comes across as, well, just a bit of a knob to be honest. But luckily, Danny is the saving grace. There's just something about this character that elevates virtually every cutscene she's in. It's a shame neither the plot nor any other character can match her prowess, because the title actually has some really impressive cinematics. What's happening in them isn't always interesting, but it does look good whilst these are playing out. These cinematics do help the game stand somewhat apart from Dead Space, as does the game's combat, which is more about melee combat than it is bullets. In the first half of the game's roughly 12-hour campaign, your stun baton will see a lot more action than any gun as you get up close and personal with the mutants of Black Iron Prison. As such, many of your encounters with the enemy will be one-on-one. Fights are largely centred around dodging, which is mapped to the left thumbstick, and with it, timing is paramount as you read the telltale signs of an enemy attack, trying to create a space to follow up with a hopefully deadly blow. The game never really develops beyond mashing R2, but a simple upgrade tree does introduce a few new moves to think about as you progress. The melee fights will be tough to start, and the introductory chapters are actually quite difficult. As your arsenal grows, it becomes a lot more manageable, to the point where some enemies won't even get close to you before they've been brutally dealt with, and this becomes all the easier when you get yourself the GRP ability, which allows you to pick up enemies and throw them into active machinery for easy kills. Mixing this up with its melee and gun action makes for a really robust combat system that has a nice weight to it. And since the title is pretty much devoid of puzzles, this is survival horror action through and through. It's easily the best thing about the experience, and also acts as a nice differentiator from Dead Space. And when things don't quite work out for you, you've got plenty of brutal death animations that will dispatch of Jacob in all manner of gory ways. Not that you ever wanted to die, but seeing how Jacob met his end next was a fun buffer to a failed run. Returning to the game's roots once more, the Callisto Protocol is almost completely linear. Save for a couple of optional areas and rooms off to the side, Striking Distance Studios has a single path for you to walk, and there's no deviating from it. In an age where 50+ hour RPGs are a dime a dozen, it is quite refreshing to be told exactly where to go and not get distracted by side quests or open world activities. You'll be experiencing all of its linearity and gory combat in a 4K quality mode at 30 FPS on PS5 or a far smoother performance mode targeting 60 FPS. For the most part, performance is good, but we did experience some pretty abysmal frame rate drops as low as 10 FPS sometimes, which would regularly crash the game, and we even had to reinstall the entire thing at one point to progress further. A day one patch could of course sort all of this out, but it is still worth mentioning. Like we said before then, it's easy to see that the Callisto Protocol is a title of fairly high quality. Taken on its own, it's an enjoyable horror campaign that's let down by its story, but redeemed with its crunchy combat system. But it must be said, it's impossible to avoid the comparisons to the series that this is so clearly heavily influenced by. And at the end of the day, the Callisto Protocol isn't quite as good as Dead Space, so it always will live in its shadow. And that's without mentioning the shiny new Dead Space remake that's just around the corner. To create a game so similar, you're always going to have this niggling feeling at the back of your mind that you've already done all of this before, just 14 years earlier. Because of that, Striking Distance Studios will always be remembered as the team that tried to bring Dead Space back, instead of making its own completely new experience. The Callisto Protocol is a good game, just not a wholly original one. And that is our review for the Callisto Protocol. Let us know if you're planning on picking it up this weekend now that it's available on both the PlayStation 4 and 5. If you enjoyed this review, consider leaving a like, that really does help us out. And if you'd like to see more video reviews, gameplay videos, let's plays, analysis, deep dives, top 10s and all sorts of stuff concerning the world of PlayStation, then subscribe to us here on Push Square. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll catch you in the next one.